Picture this. You pull into a tractor dealership and see two machines parked 20 feet apart. One is red, one is blue, different badges, different model names, different brand histories. And almost immediately you have an opinion. Maybe the red one looks tougher. Maybe the blue one feels more familiar. Maybe your dad ran one brand for 30 years, so you already know which tractor you would trust before you ever turn the key. But now imagine the salesman opens both machines up and tells you something unexpected. Under those different colors, a surprising amount of the engineering may come from the same family. That doesn't mean every tractor is identical. It doesn't mean paint is the only difference. But it does reveal something fascinating about the way we buy machines. Sometimes we're comparing engineering, and sometimes we're comparing stories our brains have attached to a logo. Here are 7 tractor families that make that distinction much harder to ignore. The first may be the clearest example, the Case IH Optum, New Holland T7 Heavy Duty, and Steyr Terrace. Red, blue, and usually white and red, 3 very different visual identities. Yet these tractors have been built around a common CNH platform, with major portions of their underlying design shared between them. The differences become especially noticeable in areas like cab controls, operator environment, options, and brand positioning. And this exposes the first psychological mechanism. Your brain categorizes before it analyzes. Color, logo, grille shape, and brand name create mental boxes. Once the Case is placed in the Case IH box and the New Holland in the New Holland box, they begin to feel like fundamentally different machines, even before you compare what is underneath. That's why a lifelong Case operator can climb into the red tractor and immediately feel more comfortable. Familiarity itself can feel like evidence of quality. But the second example makes this stranger, because now we're moving beyond brands under the same corporate umbrella. Consider the class Atos and the Deutz-Fahr 5G. Years ago, Class and same Deutz-Fahr announced a collaboration involving tractors in roughly the 70 to 110 horsepower class, and the Atos emerged from that relationship with close technical ties to the Deutz-Fahr 5G family. Imagine seeing a Class tractor on a farm. If you associate Class with a specific German engineering tradition, your mind may automatically assume the entire tractor was independently developed inside that world. Psychologists sometimes describe shortcuts like this as heuristics. In normal language, your brain uses the brand's reputation to fill in information you don't actually have. And usually, that's useful. You can't tear down the transmission of every tractor before buying it. The problem begins when the shortcut becomes certainty. The third case comes from Same and Deutz-Fahr. The Same Explorer and Deutz-Fahr Agrofarm were sold with extremely close technical connections. Historical equipment references describe the Agrofarm as a Deutz-Fahr version of the Explorer architecture, although different engines and configurations could create meaningful distinctions. And this is where the story becomes more complicated. Because once people hear that 2 tractors share a foundation, there's a temptation to say, so they're exactly the same. But that can be just as misleading as believing they're completely unrelated. Think about 2 farmers who own closely related machines. One has 6,000 nearly trouble-free hours, the other has dealt with electrical problems, hydraulic leaks, or a bad dealer experience. Ask them which brand is better, and you'll probably hear 2 completely different truths. That's confirmation bias at work. Once you believe you bought the better machine, every good experience reinforces the decision. Every failure your neighbor has becomes additional proof. Which takes us to the 4th family, Landini's 7 Series and McCormick's X7. Both brands belong to Argo Tractors, and their tractor ranges have been developed within the same industrial group, creating substantial technical overlap between comparable machines. Yet the emotional experience of buying them can be completely different. Why? Because you're not only buying a tractor, you're buying the dealership that answers the phone when something breaks. You're buying parts availability during planting or hay season. You're buying the mechanic who already knows your operation. You're buying your expectation of what that tractor will be worth 5 years from now. So familiarity isn't always irrational brand loyalty. Sometimes familiarity is compressed experience. If one dealer has taken care of your family for 20 years, choosing that brand may actually reduce real risk. And that distinction matters. Now consider number 5, the Kubota M8 and versatile nemesis. For many American buyers, these names trigger very different associations. Kubota may bring to mind Japanese engineering and orange utility tractors. Versatile may bring to mind Canadian-built machines and big acreage farming. Yet the M8 project came through a manufacturing relationship with Versatile, and reports surrounding its launch described the Kubota and Nemesis tractors as sharing the same underlying platform with brand-specific differences. This is where the halo effect becomes powerful. When you trust a brand, that positive impression can spill into qualities you haven't independently tested. The orange tractor may somehow look more refined. The red and yellow one may somehow look more heavy duty. Same basic engineering relationship, different expectations, and expectations don't just change opinions, they can change what you notice. Number 6 pushes the idea even further. Within the SDF family, brands including Deutz-Fahr, Sam, and Lamborghini Trattori have offered closely related tractors across comparable segments, including families such as the Deutz-Fahr 5D Keyline, Sam Dorado, and Lamborghini Spire Trend. The names and styling can be dramatically different, while engines, components, dimensions, and engineering strategies may overlap extensively across the group. SDF itself operates multiple tractor brands, and comparable models use shared technologies such as Farmotion engines. And this introduces something deeper than brand preference: identity. For some people, a tractor brand isn't just equipment, it's family history. It's the tractor in the background of childhood photos. It's the dealership your grandfather visited. It's the hat your father wore. It's the machine you learned to drive before you were old enough to have a driver's license. At that point, asking someone to change brands can feel strangely personal. The decision is no longer only, which tractor has the specifications I need? It becomes, what kind of farmer am I? And finally, number 7 brings everything back to a comparison American buyers may find especially familiar. The Case IH Farmel 75C and New Holland PowerStar 75, including the earlier T4.75 lineage. They are closely related C&H utility tractors. Parts references even show components used across corresponding Farmel 75C and PowerStar T4.75 models, while tractor references identify them as similar counterparts. Now imagine two neighbors. One buys the red tractor, the other buys the blue one. 5 years later, ask each man who made the better decision. There's a good chance both will say, I did. That's not stupidity. After spending tens of thousands of dollars, people naturally want their decision to make sense. We remember evidence that supports the choice. We explain away evidence that threatens it. So here's the experiment. Take every tractor we've talked about and paint it gray. Remove every badge. Remove every model number. You get only the specifications, controls, purchase price, warranty, dealer distance, parts availability, service reputation, and resale expectations. Which one would you choose? And more importantly, would it still be the tractor you're defending today? That's the uncomfortable part. Because maybe your brand loyalty comes from years of real experience. Maybe your dealer really is better. Maybe one cab really fits you better. Maybe one configuration genuinely works better for your operation. But maybe part of what you're calling better engineering is simply familiarity, wearing the clothes of certainty. That's why the lesson isn't that tractor color doesn't matter. It's that color can matter for reasons that have nothing to do with steel. A tractor is an engine, transmission, hydraulics, software, axles, and thousands of components. But the tractor you believe in is something else. It's all of that machinery, plus memory, trust, experience, identity, and expectation. So the next time you see a red tractor parked beside a blue, green, orange, or white one, don't just ask what's different. Ask which differences are actually inside the machine and which ones arrived with you. If one of these tractor families surprised you, tell me in the comments which brand you'd choose if every logo disappeared, and subscribe for more stories hiding underneath the machines we think we already know.